Well, this is a bit of a mess, isn't it? I'll admit I wasn't super excited for this movie, even when it was teased at the end of Superman, and now that I've seen it, I'm ultimately left a bit empty and confused, even though it's pretty much what I expected it to be. A fairly mid-tier superhero movie, like a lot of the early MCU films. That doesn't mean those films are bad. Heck, I don't even think this one is bad. It just is. So from what I can tell, this is based on an actual comic story, a fairly recent one too, and one that a lot of people liked. In that context, I can imagine people being disappointed that they took a good story and turned it into a mid-movie. Heck, I sure wouldn't be happy. But what makes this movie not as great as Superman? Well, let's dive in. First off, the palette. Recently I watched the Mandalorian movie, which a lot of people complained had a very ugly look to it. I don't necessarily agree, but I definitely am not a fan of this movie's aesthetic. Moving from brown planet to brown planet isn't exactly exciting stuff, and the general style of the movie is a bit obnoxious, honestly. It feels less like a director's own creative vision and more like someone else trying to mimic James Gunn, which I personally think is not necessary. Part of what made these cinematic universe movies appealing to me was how each standalone film felt different. And speaking of obnoxious, I don't really know if I like this depiction of Supergirl. No disrespect to the actress, she plays the role well. I just don't think I jive with this version of the character. It just feels like she's meant to appeal to a certain type of demographic. And before anyone says anything, I am not grifting. This is not a grifting review. This isn't an anti-woke review or ever silliness like that. I'm just stating my own personal thoughts about this depiction of Supergirl. In all honesty, it really depends on if you like this type of character, and I don't. Oh, and I also picked up this movie's formula, where it constantly finds ways to underpower Supergirl and then let her actually do Supergirl things when it's convenient. I'm really not a fan of it, and it got annoying after like the 5th time the movie does it. Yes, Superman did it too, but it was only like once or twice. Plus, he was going up against a couple of villains who could actually take a hit from him. So yeah, the other main character, Ruthie, was fine, pretty inoffensive all things considered, and her performance was alright, and her interactions with Supergirl, they're fine, but I don't really feel anything when watching them. It doesn't help that the villain's very throwaway. Like, they do some interesting stuff with him, but he feels more like a lackey than a main villain, easily the weakest part of the movie. Meanwhile, on the opposite end, you had Lobo. I feel like Jason Momoa was just born to play this guy. He's got the look, the voice, the mannerisms, easily one of the best parts of the movie, and he's barely in it. Seriously, if Lobo was written out of this movie, nothing would have changed, other than even less butts in the seats, I guess. Something else that was underwhelming, believe it or not, was the action, mainly because a lot of the time we can barely see it, and when we do see it, the choreography leaves a lot to be desired. There are a couple highlights, but nothing crazy. And the music choices, oh my god, don't even get me started on them. They range from fine to questionable, especially during the finale, and a chunk of the story revolving around saving Crypto ultimately falls flat for me. We know he's gonna be fine in the end. I said this when I watched Superman, and I really do think if they just used a real dog, it would have hit harder. All that being said, I may not be a big fan of this version of Supergirl, but I do like her arc in this. It's a good one for her to have that does well to explain her mannerisms and endear me to this incarnation of the character. Plus, we get to see a refreshingly new take on the destruction of Krypton. That was a genuinely interesting and arguably more tragic version of a backstory that we all know. Some interactions were cute, and again, Lobo was fun. With a better script and a better version of the villain, this movie could have been great. But all that being said, what gets me the most about this movie is the general lack of a reason to exist. Superman had a reason to exist. A modern film depicting the character how he should be. This movie, I guess it's just to establish Supergirl and to a lesser extent Lobo. By the end, it doesn't feel like much was really accomplished. And again, I know most of what I've said has been negative, but I want to stress that I don't think this is a bad movie. It's just fine. Perfectly base level entertainment that I think most people will enjoy. But in some ways, that may be worse than being bad. What do you think?